Awesome. Praise Yah for his word and for all the insights that he gave me that weren't in. You know what? I struggled a lot to put this together because I was putting together on fumes. 2 o'clock in the morning after 6 hours straight of counseling and everything else. And so it's a real good thing that we had the presentation this morning and that I was energized because while you guys were watching the children, I was finishing this. And it really kind of came together. And I'm very excited about the way it's coming together. I hope and pray that you can receive this and that it will work for you into understanding where your struggles might be in terms of the concept of salvation. All right? So this is the time when we take up the questions. Oh, it's already 5:30, so we got a little bit of time, okay? Because dinner is at 6, so we just have a little bit of time here. So we'll get in about 10 or 15 minutes worth of questions. If you have a comment or question, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll have the mic come around. If you're on live stream, Kurt's manning the live stream desk. Okay, Shira's going to get us started.
Thank you, Rabbi Steve, for coming down strongly. I have 2 comments. I know that you have a good time mimicking the TV preachers who seem so unintelligent. However, I know that you would agree. I and perhaps many in this room have witnessed and have been part of extremely impressive displays of words of knowledge and prophecy down to the very tiniest detail. And I appreciate your other teaching in which you have said, even if the prophecy comes true, even if it's accurate, even if it's completely convincing, if it's leading you away from Torah obedience, it's false.
Amen. And that's from Deuteronomy 13. Which was actually the inspiration for the Beware False Prophets teaching.
All right. My second comment is partly my own testimony. I came into Torah gung-ho. I had a very loving Christian family, and still do. And they're very kind to me, regardless of the fact that I'm different. I call myself the purple sheep. But I've learned as my zeal for Torah kind of began to come into the testing time, I found that one of my biggest tests was my love for my family and my love for my very good, kind, sweet Christian family caused me to try to evade my grief over their status by defending their good Christian behavior and seeming devotion to JC, and I found myself in a season of being very tempted to water down what they were really involved with. And so I just want to encourage everyone here. I have grown a lot since I gave up the need to know where they're going to end up in the future. We have to put them in Yahweh's hands and move forward. We have to stand on the truth. And Yeshua said, leave your father and mother and follow me. Even though I'm now a senior citizen, my mother and father and siblings, I had to leave them emotionally as much as I still love them in order to really understand and adhere to what Rabbi has just taught us.
Amen. Thank you, Shira. Look, just a reminder, signs and wonders do not in itself prove anything. Scripture tells you that. It's not me telling you that. Signs and wonders all have one thing in common, to strengthen your belief in something or someone. That's what the purpose is. How do you measure whether it's good or bad? Deuteronomy 13 says, if it's leading you towards Torah observance and the covenant, it's good. If it's leading you away, it's not good. So let's be careful with that because people will tell me about the amazing things they saw in church. I don't doubt it happened. I don't. But what you have to figure out is what you're supposed to do with that. Because in your mind, that endorses that it was good. And that's not scriptural. Signs and wonders do not prove anything. Because we have Deuteronomy 13 says, and when that prophet or dreamer of dreams says something and it actually comes true, so it came true, he says, you need to look now. Yahweh's testing you. You need to see, are they leading you away from Yahweh and Torah? Because if they are, it's a test. And that's really important. So people will ask, why don't we see so much signs and wonders in the Messianic? Because you have a book and a brain that they didn't have. You don't need that. The test is, will you come to this without it while everybody else in the other system's having it? There's a reason why Yahweh is allowing it to happen there and not here. Because it's a strong temptation to believe that maybe we're wrong and they're right because we don't have the signs and wonders. Because the conclusion could easily be we could jump to the conclusion that somehow we must be wrong. Otherwise, we'd have more signs and wonders. How come they do and we don't? Because we have a book, and when the signs and wonders were a big deal back in Yeshua's day, they didn't have a book. They couldn't even read. Go back and study. The literacy rate was 2 or 3%. Just a small percent of people that could read. You saw that even in the turn of the century, 1900s, Fiddler on the Roof. We watched that the other night, right, as part of movie night. When only the one guy who had the newspaper could read. Nobody else could. And so he brings out the newspaper, and he's got to read it to them because they can't read it. So thank you for sharing that because, like you said, it's easy to say when they go, well, hey, somebody does this, and it's, but what about when they said some incredible things and it happened, and it was right spot on and very specific? Then you have to ask yourself, what was the purpose of that? To strengthen your belief that you were in what? The right place. Don't fall for that. Deuteronomy 13. See, I could just tell you don't fall for that. You'd be like, yeah, that's your opinion. No, that's Yahweh's opinion. Read Deuteronomy 13. It's right there, clear as it could be.
So that was very interesting what Shira spoke because I actually want to echo that. One of the things that I realized having come out of Catholicism and eventually ending up in Torah is I find myself grieving for those who I've left behind.
Absolutely.
And it is, it's a difficult place to be when you've left everyone, parents, siblings, just people you hold dear. And it's a fate in which, I'm constantly, when I'm speaking with Isabel, I kept sharing with her as we were leading up to this. I said, we're leaving Egypt. We have to just keep cutting these people away as we kept on continuing. No matter what it is, just we have to keep leaving them. We pray eventually they also leave as well, but it doesn't matter. We have to keep leaving them. And so the grief still existed.
Amen.
And it still exists.
Amen.
So.
All right, think of it this way. If Yahweh had let them live who did not go into the land, and they went to the land exactly with that group of people, what level of influence would those not strongly believing people have had on everybody else? I mean, they already had enough problems going in with a whole new bunch of people. Imagine if that old bunch of people had gone in, how much more of a mess it would have been. Because they were already influencing, when Joshua and Caleb got up there were those leaders who came back, the 10, not the 12, they were influencing the people. Could you imagine if that group had been able to go into the land? What kind of problems they would have had? I can only imagine it would have been worse. But you have to cut them out. But also, don't just go to the Exodus from Egypt, because the way George described it, that's Abraham or Abram. Before he became Abraham, he was told to go and leave his family, his friends, everybody. That's what you're being asked to do. We talk about Abraham was the father of the faithful. He took it on faith, on belief, to trust fully his Creator, who said, get up and go. Can you do that? That's why we're impressed with Abraham. That's a tough choice. Where's the mic? Okay, back there, Rabbi Tom.
All right, thank you. Going back to Shoftim or judges, what impressed me here was that Yahweh, of course, raised up rulers for them. And all the days of the ruler, everything was all right, but it came to be when the ruler was dead that they would turn back and do more corruptly. I don't think the ruler necessarily, well, first of all, we could substitute anointed, appointed for the ruler. And I don't think he necessarily has to be dead. But I think when people get disgruntled with leadership, when they become disenchanted, or when they have some kind of a hair up their nose the wrong way about something leadership has said or done, and then they leave, they almost always take people with them. And
True.
and then it's like a cancer. It spreads throughout the body. So when we see that people have already gone off track and there's no calling them back, they've rejected Yahweh's leadership, the anointed, appointed. I think it's high time that we stay away from them, disassociate, just cut off all. That doesn't mean we have to shun them like some religions teach or anything like that. We can't speak to them, we can't be cordial. But we can't be buddy-buddy with them either, because they'll draw us into their web.
Yeah, we have to be careful. Look, we're not trying to be cultish. We're not telling you to never talk to your family or friends again. We're simply telling you, be aware of how they affect you and how you affect them. Because a lot of you are convincing yourselves, well, I'm influencing them. Really? It might be more the other way around than you think. Be careful with that. I would like to think you're influencing them, that you're at least setting, an example that plants a seed, so when Abba's ready to call them, the first thing they're going to think to do is, I need to talk to my brother, my sister, my cousin, my daughter, my son, my parent, whoever it is that is the one that's walking this out, that they know is walking this out. And we make sure that we also show love, so they don't think, well, I know what I'm looking for isn't that, because that's cold and ice and there's no love there. You guys have been here for 8 days. Hopefully you've seen lots of love. But we have to make sure that other people know that there's love here too. But be really aware. If you are aware of what your reaction is and response is to people, you will know who you need to start spending a lot less time with. You know who has a lot of authority and influence over you. You know when you get around them, you find yourself doing things you never would do otherwise, and you wonder how that happened. Because you've already put them in a place of strong influence. Those are people you need to be really careful with if they're influencing you, is not influencing you in the right direction. Okay? Where's the mic? Okay, Steve?
All right. I didn't hear the earlier parts because I was in the classroom, but I just was wondering, all of this stuff we're supposed to do come out of, but one point I didn't hear you talking about is you guys need to find the proper leadership, and why would you want to go anywhere else when you have that guy right there in front of you telling you already what you need to know? So how's that working? Finding the right person to lead you through the steps we need to take to get us out of where we're still holding on to.
Obviously, he doesn't know that we're just taught by the Ruach now when we don't need. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Look, and again, I have never claimed that everybody should be listening to me. You need to just find whoever Abba's appointed, anointed, etc., that you need that's going to help you with what you need to be helped with. The people, notice the people did not get Yahweh directly. They got him setting up an anointed, appointed, a leader, a ruler to lead and guide them. Okay? And Yeshua didn't send them out there to tell them, hey, everybody, just kind of believe, and the Ruach is going to teach you everything. He said, go and you teach them, and then teach them to go out and teach more people. He works through teachers. We have a teaching called Learn and Teach the Torah. That one, if it's not on video, I'll redo it. It needs to be done. It's very important. It makes the case for this exact point. Okay? Where's the mic? Okay, Aubrey?
I know it's going to be different for everybody's walk, but I'm really close with my family, and as you start walking Torah, it just kind of naturally separates you. It's not that you walk away from them. It's not that you dislike them or you can't hang out with them, but you start doing Shabbat, they do Sunday, you do the feasts, they do, the other holidays, and it naturally puts distance. So, we don't get together on the weekends as much anymore, or, it becomes more sporadic. So it naturally separates you, but I still love them. I'm still close with them. I still talk to them. And they accept, for us, it's worked out, but it was rocky at first, so I just wanted to share that.
Amen. Look, generally speaking, let's be honest. Which side of the equation, you or your family, is the one that, in general, is reacting very poorly to this whole change? Okay? Did you become more cold and judging? Some of you did. Most of you didn't. Or did they get all harsh and strong and angry and start lashing out at you? Because I hear the stories. Okay, now my family didn't do that. Okay? But remember, I come from a sort of a secular Jewish family. They weren't thrilled with the thing I was doing. But in my family's case, because they were doing nothing, they weren't involved in anything, they appreciated that it helped change me into a much nicer, easier to deal with person. I'll tell you a quick story. Look, when I was coming into belief in Messiah, Torah, and the New Testament all in one time, my mother had a friend whose son had become Orthodox. I mean, Jewish Orthodox. And so 2 houses that were mostly secular Jewish, culturally Jewish. One had a child who became, a Torah observant Messianic, so to speak. And the other had a child who became an Orthodox Jew. And in comparing notes, because they were just sort of, whining to each other, oh, you can't believe my son, he did it, oh, my son did that. You know what? My mother was able to say that I became easier to deal with. I became more respectful. And the other lady said her son became harder to deal with. It became more disrespectful because nothing in the house was clean enough, good enough, this and that and everything else. So you should be having a light shine so that people can see something. Okay? And be consistent. Don't ever cross any line that they try to get you to cross, or they'll keep pushing that line. Some of you counseled me because you've already made that mistake and now you know how to put the line back. You can't do that. It won't work. You can't undo it. Well, I shouldn't say that. It takes a lot. You have to totally start from scratch, reestablishing something you should have put there in the first place. Coming back into that place is a lot of effort. Okay, where's the mic? Okay, David?
So I've lived the better part of the last 20 years wearing armor, the various thicknesses. And some of it did good and some of it did bad. But we're called to put on armor. And when we're wearing our armor that we're called to put on, we are able to rebuff the things that otherwise would offend us from a brother. But those people that don't wear that same armor, Christians, other people, when you go to hug them or do anything else, it can be uncomfortable for them because they're not protected the way you are by the belief system that we have. And with that in mind, we look forward to the opportunity to come together and to meet and to enjoy these times that we're commanded to do, yet we put Rabbi in the position to contend for the place to meet at the benevolence and the opportunity to do it in the house of the whore of Babylon. So when are we going to, finally pony up and put on our armor and do what we're supposed to do and give him the opportunity to find us a place to meet?
Amen. Amen. So he got a little quiet in voice there. What he said was, basically, we still, unfortunately, because we don't have our own place to meet, end up in all kinds of places that are owned by Christian organizations, as this place is. I mean, it's a YMCA, okay? And there are churches we've used to meet on Sabbaths and stuff like that. So his point was, when are we going to pony up, is what he said, and help get the ministry here what we need to get our own place? That was his challenge. I didn't put him up to that, but that's what he's asking, okay? I wish you'd have got louder, not quieter, when you were saying that last part. Okay, but he was taking it very seriously. And I appreciate that, David, very much. Okay, Raymond?
So there's 2 things, and because there's one other person, I'll keep them as brief as I can. Thing 1, very grateful that people come out of Mitzrayim, and that the way that he's handling things this time, instead of it having to happen all at once, we get to see generation after generation, because thanks to that I have my wife. And to me it's very beautiful that one of the things he used to open her eyes even as a child was in Zechariah 14, actually talking about Egypt, where it talks about, it shall be that all who are left from all the nations which came up against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year. And it goes on to talk about keeping Sukkot. And even Mitzrayim, even Egypt. Okay, and we all know how that goes. If they don't, they won't get rain, etc. But she was thinking, how can, if the feasts still matter then, how can they not matter now? And so he used, now I want us to think about this. This wouldn't be here if not only all of Yisrael had to come up out of Mitzrayim, but also all of the Mitzrites. Now, I just paused for a second because I wanted us to think that it's important that everything happen in its own time and in its own order. And while we may miss people and we may grieve, and it's okay to grieve the loss of those relationships and the pain that's caused by the distance.
Right.
The order in which things are happening is intentional and it's beautiful. It's good that the field be harvested first from the first fruits and then the rest of the field. The owner of the field is a master. He knows exactly what he's doing. And so we can rejoice at the opportunity to be in the first fruits. Let's not think that it's some horrible, sad thing for there to be a rest of the field. It's a good thing. Okay, it takes us some time to mature to the point where we appreciate it.
Amen.
Okay. The other thing was about leadership and authority. I think we all understand that on one level, it is true what they say, that we're taught by the Ruach and that, that Yah is our real master and our real teacher. But we should all be very, very grateful that he puts all these people in between him and us because we are not ready. We're so not ready for his fullness and his brilliance. It would burn us away. In the state that we're in right now, it would absolutely burn us away. I know I'm very grateful for the relationship that I have with MTOI. I'm very grateful for the relationship that I have with my father. I'm very grateful for the relationship that with everybody that I've had who's been an authority and a teacher in my life, that I had the opportunity to work out my self-sovereignty issues to the level I have. Not that they're all gone, okay, but on people, so that when I screwed up, I wasn't like Nadab and Abihu. I wasn't like Nadab and Abihu, okay? So that when I messed up, I didn't become a pile of dust or a grease spot. Because you don't play around with the King of Kings. And you don't play around with the Most High. And I think we all know we've played around with our leadership. And we've played around with our teachers. And aren't we glad that we didn't just drop to a pile of ashes at that moment? Aren't we glad that we were given the space and given the time to continue to learn? And the mercy that's there, like it says in the Psalm, Master Yah, correct me, but in your mercy, lest I be brought to nothing.
Amen. Thank you, Raymond. Joe? Okay, where do we go now? Okay, Sharon?
Okay, this is probably very simplistic, but we know there are millions of people sitting in Christian churches, and some of them are relatives. And I would like to know, how much responsibility does the individual sitting there have if they're being taught wrong? Because you have said that you're responsible for what you teach us. And those teachers certainly know that at some level they're teaching these people wrong.
Yeah, no, for the teacher's part, there's a double judgment. Now, to what degree do they actually know what they're talking about, or are they just doing what they've been taught and what they were trained to be, they're just parroting back what they've been parroted to and et cetera down the generations. We're not going to deal with that wheat tares thing. I'm not going to try to figure out what happens to them. For the people listening, unless their eyes have been opened and ears have been opened, think about it the way you were. You were sitting there, and all of a sudden it hit you, something's just not right, or something's missing, or both. See, until that moment happens, I'm not worried about the people in the chairs. What they do with that moment is what's going to make the difference. Are they going to get up and start seeking and asking and knocking or not? Now, if you listen to the Millennium and Kingdom teaching, I want you to understand, if you're worried about all those people in the church, all your friends, all your family members, you're still thinking like a Christian. If you're all afraid of what's going to happen to them, that's Christian thought. There you go right there. If you understand the teaching on the millennium and kingdom, you understand that there is a plan for them. It's just not for right now. And the plan includes their opportunity to be in the kingdom. But if you're all afraid they're going to just go through life, and because they didn't have this aha moment like you did, they're just doomed, then you're still thinking like a Christian. That's the problem. And I had a woman call me who was somewhat part of our ministry about 18 years ago. And we're talking about this stuff because she was all freaked out about relatives and people that were getting in the hospital and getting older and going to die and everything. And I told her it doesn't work that way, and she didn't want to listen. She was very Christian, even though she was Messianic. And she said to me, because she was getting frustrated, she said, do you mean to tell me that all these church fathers and all these people and all these pastors for all these years are wrong and you're right? And I said, yes. And she said, the ego, the pride. I said, no, they're just wrong. Longevity and history and bloodline, so to speak, doesn't make them right. Matter of fact, follow the bloodline back. You end up in Mother Church. It's part of why they're wrong, because that's what they're teaching you. But you have to be willing to stand up and say that. Yes, I think they're wrong. My wife remembers that conversation that I had. And this lady then tried to split the congregation and all kinds of stuff, because actually she first started out doing what you really shouldn't do, is that the teaching would start, she'd leave the room, go into the kitchen where the oneg was going to be prepared for later, and then she wouldn't come out until the Q&A like this, and then she'd start throwing bombs out, and I actually stopped her one week and said, you do not have the right to ask questions because you didn't sit here and listen. I said, what kind of nerve do you have that you think it's appropriate to walk out, and don't think I don't see it. I'm standing here and I see what you do. And you walk out, won't listen, but come in and then think you're going to come in here and start poking at what I just said. Show some respect, sit in and listen, and then make your comments. Oh, Rabbi, that was very mean of you. No, it was very rude of her. And disrespectful to everybody else sitting there. Somebody's got to call it out. That's the kind of leader you're looking for. Aren't you tired of the leaders that are wishy-washy, beating around the bush and won't say it like it is? But then when I do, and I finally, you love it when it's somebody else's thing, but when I pop your little bubble, I'm swinging that sword around pretty good. Eventually I'm going to hit your bubble. I've got a very wide-angled shotgun, lots of pellets going everywhere. I'm going to hit you. And you love it when it's hitting everybody else. Then it hits you, you don't like it. Then I'm no longer whatever impressive thing you might say about me. Now I'm like the worst, dumb, whatever, and you want to go tell everybody what a false thing I am. Because I was only impressive to you while I was popping everybody else's stuff. How are you going to react when it's your toes that are getting whacked? Call it Messianic whack-a-mole. I think we put that in we put that as one of the in focuses. I think we have that in focus called whack-a-mole. You keep moving those feet, don't worry, I'll hit them. Because it's not me. See, if it was me, yes, you can move your feet and I can miss. Because I don't know what the thing is to hit. He does. And he'll have me say something at some point that you need, because maybe I said something today that you needed, but now something that you needed the next time. He will hit your toes, and he'll use someone teaching to do it. Don't use that as a measure of whether or not you like the teacher. By the way, I don't care if you like the teacher. I care if you are allowing the teacher to be a tool for him to tell you what you needed to hear, not what you wanted to hear. Okay? There's times when I've said things or told my wife I was going to teach something, she's like, but if you teach that, people will leave. And I said, that's not my problem. I don't care how many people are in the room. I just stand up and get out of the way and let him blast. Okay? You can clap, that's fine. Because that clapping is not for me. That's for you appreciating that I'm getting out of the way, letting him blast. I'll take care. Well, actually, you know what? I was about to take credit for the wise guy, but I think he's a wise guy too. You read some of the stuff he says, he's a wise guy. Hey, Pharaoh, you worship frogs? Here's some frogs. He's a wise guy. We'll give you some frogs. I'm sorry if you are not ready for some of this in terms of being able to handle the directness of it. Find somebody else. I don't know what else to tell you. This is the tool I am. I'm a hammer or whatever. You need a screwdriver or you need some other thing, go find it somewhere else. Some of you, after I'm teaching, you're going to the bar and you need a screwdriver. Man, that teaching was rough. I'll take a screwdriver, please. But then you end up getting hammered anyway. Oh, I just could not resist. No. I could not resist. So take the hammer from the podium. It doesn't leave you with a hangover. Okay? Actually, it'll clear out all the cobwebs, is what it's meant to do. All right, let's go ahead and close. Everybody go ahead and stand up. We'll close. Shabbat Shalom! Shavua Tov. Have a good week. We love you.